A very good afternoon to you, and thanks for joining us on our program on television this beautiful Monday afternoon. The program is African Discourse on independent television in Benin City, and my name is Evan Sunokoge. Well, it's Holy Week, so may I say happy Easter to you in advance. And of course, all the good tidings of this period comes to you in Jesus' name, amen. Well, today on the program Africa Discourse, we're going to be looking at Africa's nations' foreign debt, you may want to say. One thing that has kept on increasing over the years. By 2021 alone, we are told that the continent of Africa has reached 726 billion US dollars in terms of total indebtedness that countries in Africa, are owing. And of course, owing good countries in the Western world, and there are also some countries in Asia. We understand that China seems to be the biggest benefactor when you talk about this debt. Nigeria is also not left out, and we also have some other countries. We're going to be having some countries, the way we have been told, the way they have come to us, about the 10 most indebted nations on the continent of Africa as we go along the show. What is the reason for this debt that countries in Africa is owing other nations of the world? What is the reason? What is responsible for it? And of course, how best can we remove ourselves from this indebtedness? And what are the solutions? How can we continue so that countries in Africa, we just maybe be like some other countries in the world that are not even a total dime, a whole dime, can be said that they are owed. Well, to discuss all this today, we are so privileged to have three discussants with us, but we've got only one here, and very soon we're going to be joining the two others so that we can have them on the program today. We are so privileged to have Professor Victor Igbenedion. He's of the Department of Vocational and Technical Education, University of Benin, here in Benin City. So welcome to the program Africa Discourse.
Good afternoon.
All right, now, so just like what we say, when others come, you get to meet them so that we'll just, discuss the issues this afternoon. Now, Professor Igbenedion, just like what we said, looking at debts owed by Africa, by 2021, that was only 2 years ago, we're told that 726 billion US dollars, that's the total amount that African nations, are owing. So from your own insights, what do you think is responsible? What are the causes for this indebtedness that African nations, are owing?
You see, every country in the world, they have some debts, even in the US. But that of Africa that we are concerned with is a stupendous amount of debt that the African continent is owing. And this is a continent that is supposed to be a very rich continent with huge mineral resources that they can convert to money. But because it's grossly underdeveloped, especially by the leaders of the different countries in the continent, we cannot get the maximum benefit from the endowment of the natural resources that we have. Take, for instance, Nigeria. It has, as at January 5th this year, it has 77 trillion debt. I cannot break it down now to the foreign debt and all that, but it's quite
so
huge.
The various nations that Nigeria is owing.
Yes. And Zambia is a particularly bad one. The gross, the debt profile is 75% of the GDP of that country. What accounts for some of these things are, one, the money that they borrow, they are not used for the purposes for which they are borrowed. So they use it for conspicuous consumption. Conspicuous consumption means you want to show that you have something to show. And these things are not of imminent value to the citizens of the country. So they embark on white elephant projects that do not bring returns to the economy. Borrowing, as I said at the beginning, is not a bad thing. if the money is properly utilized. You use the money to invest so that it can generate more income and pay back the loan. Now, you see country, this yesterday now we're told that Nigeria is owing China so much amount of money. And at a ruinous rate of interest of about 29%, they're owing $4 billion US dollars. And they service with 29% the interest. So how can we get out of the quagmire? And you looking around, even as a Nigerian, you will not even see, apart from the most touted railway and all that one, you don't see anything visible that they use the money for. So that is one factor. Another factor is corruption. The people in power, they borrow this money, and a large chunk of the money is cornered by themselves to use it for their own personal wealth and their family. So that is one of the causes, some of the causes of this debt profile that Africans are owing. Or if otherwise, if they use the money to improve education, to put some infrastructure in place, you will find that in no time they will repay those debts and they will be on their own.
All right, now, would you want to say that somehow maybe it's been rather unfortunate for some of these African countries? Because just like what you said a while ago, that Zambia, by 2020, that was the year of COVID now, Zambia became the very first African country to have defaulted in trying to pay back some of these loans in terms of interest payments and all that. Now, that was an unfortunate situation. So if we have that in mind, that it's really not because of corruption, as it were, maybe because of unfortunate situation. Zambia probably was not only the country that was affected by COVID-19. Almost all these African countries that have borrowed were also affected. So don't you think that may have been a major setback, for these African countries?
Well, in a way it could be. But let's take Nigeria, our own country. Where are we coming from? Not too long ago, when Obasanjo was the president of the country, he pleaded for debt forgiveness.
Debt relief.
Debt relief.
Yeah.
And he was obliged. They did, with Okonjo-Iweala, they came and they gave us some relief. And we're thinking that in no time, we will be able to stabilize and make progress. But just now, how much are we owing? So much money. And the borrowing continues. How can we keep afloat in this situation? That is the problem we have. As I said, if the money is not channeled to productive ventures for development, it's going to be a problem. We cannot get out of it for a long time. And it boils down to leadership problem. How do we, you could see how some governors are able to manage their resources, even in this bad economy that we talk about. Okay, a situation where a substantial amount is used to subsidize fuel in the country. How do we get out of it? And tomorrow now, they said they will remove fuel subsidy. Where do we go from there? The income. Have you understood the vicious circle of poverty? It says income is poor, and there's no investment. So if your income is poor, you cannot invest in anything. And so we have been impoverished. My friend would say we are living in decent poverty. That is the situation we are. Whether you are a professor, whether you are anything, your money is rubbished by the country. See how much we are using for transportation and to service the debt that we. So nothing really comes out of the debt. So it's a huge problem for the continent.
All right, viewers of that program, African Discourse on Independent Television, and we are looking at African nations' foreign debt, causes, effects, and solutions. And I told you that we're still expecting two guests here. Mr. John Omogbe is going to be with us in a jiffy, and also we're expecting Mr. Ago Washington. He's a Nigerian from diaspora, so maybe he's going to be giving us the diaspora perspective. All right, so that's on one side. When we say that African nations are owing, perhaps we may need to get it more specific so that we really understand. Now, we have about 10 top 10 most 10 most nations now that are owing China alone. That's our top 10 African nations that are owing China alone. Now, we've got Angola. We're told that Angola is owing 25 billion US dollars. It's owing China 25 billion US dollars. And also we have Ethiopia. Ethiopia, the East African country, comes in a distant second on the list with a reported sum of about 13.5 billion US dollars debt that, that country is owing China. And of course, we have Kenya. Kenya is a third, about 7.9 billion US dollars, that Kenya is owing, China. We also have Republic of Congo, which is owing about 7.5 billion US dollars. Sudan is also on the list. Sudan owes 6.4 billion US dollars. And we have Zambia. Zambia, is owing 6.9 billion dollars. Now, Zambia's case is very unfortunate because by the year 2020, just like what we said a while ago, that Zambia became the very first African nation to have defaulted because of the COVID-19. They were really heated, they were really hit hard by the COVID-19. So Zambia is owing 6.5 billion US dollars. Then we have Cameroon. Cameroon, a West African country, is owing 5.5 billion US dollars. That is owing China. While we have for Nigeria, another West African country, owes 4.8 billion US dollars that the country is said to be owing China. And we have Ghana. Ghana is also on the list, 3.5 billion US dollars. And the 10th on the list now is the Democratic Republic of Congo. We understand that the crisis situation in Congo is really not helping issues now. And Congo owes 3.4 billion US dollars that is owing China. Now, these are 10 countries on the continent of Africa, owing China alone. Now, Professor, 10 countries owing just one country. Is that, you want to throw more light on that?
Well, it's like a recolonization of Africa that we are seeing. That's just one country, China.
China.
The US is there, other countries, other trade partners that are owing. And you see, the Chinese, they came subtly. They gave them good conditions and all that at the beginning. And we're thinking that we're running away from these Western countries. But here we are. The debt overhang of African countries from China is quite huge. And in a short while, they are going to take over so many things to be able to recover their debts. They are even more deft than the Western countries. Once they want to recover their debt, nobody can stop them. Okay, so this is where we have to be careful. The issue is that, as I keep saying, you don't just, it's just like individuals too. Anything that passes by, you want to buy. You want to show off. You want to show off. From how much money do you have? Yeah, but I think some of these countries, because just like what we were saying a while ago, that the year of COVID was also, it was an unfortunate situation for these countries. Take, for example, like Nigeria. We had our own fair share here. A situation that it was told that the government of the day could not almost pay salaries. They had to resort to borrowing externally, states having bailouts from federal governments and all that. So I think we also need to situate all this whole thing because most times when these countries borrow, externally, there are conditions that are attached to it. And most times, the country that is borrowing cannot fit in and they fall flat for the conditions. It borders on inability to also look inward. That's the example I was going to say. How do you mean look inward? Inward? As I said, there are abundant resources here. And if they use the money for proper education, the people that they have educated properly will be able to change these natural resources to be well for the nation. But the focus is not on education at all. It just, as I said, white elephant project. You want to put this project there. Projects ordinarily are supposed to generate income.
Are you saying focusing on education alone can probably help some of these African countries?
Certainly, who we manage, who we manage. We are going out of regular education now. We have different types of education. People are creative. You have to stimulate their creative thinking and their ingenuity by the type of education that you are giving to them. It's not just a paper and pen, you sit down in the classroom, you talk. Yeah, there are young people coming up with ideas that have to be harnessed, but the conditions have to be there. All this wealth that they carry to the Western nations, the resources, they are processed there.
Okay. All right, so let's take a short pause now so that we can bring our other guests into the program. Remember, I told you that we are expecting Mr. Omogbe and also Mr. Ago, so that they can also tell us, give us their insights about the Africa's debts that we are talking about on the program this afternoon. All right, thank you so much. The program is still here, African Discourse on Independent Television. Yes, I told you that we're expecting Mr. John Omogbe and also Omogbe rather, and also Mr. Washington Ago, who is a Nigerian in diaspora. So he's going to be giving us the diasporian perspective on the program today. Gentlemen, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, so let me just start with Mr. Ago Washington. Now, we're looking at Africa's debts, African nations' debts. By 2021, that's about last 2 years ago, we're told that the continent's debt has risen to $726 billion US. And it will amaze you to know that almost about 10 countries, if not more, are owing China huge amounts of money. So from your own diasporian perspective, what is your insight when we say African nations owing Western world, owing China, and owing other foreign nations? Give us an insight into it.
Okay, let me quickly start with Nigeria. As of today, we've been informed that Nigeria is owing $33 billion US to the Western and the foreign countries, to be precise. And that is not counting the domestic debt that we have incurred. So there is no country that can progress when the government continues to borrow and borrow and borrow. Mind you, there is no problem in taking loans if those loans are meant for development, if those loans can be easily repaid. But the situation where, like in Nigeria, where in the near future, if not already, our foreign earnings might not be enough to service the debt we already owe, is a big problem. Most of the debt we owe are to China recently. And the Chinese don't play with debt recovery. We have cases of places like Zambia, where the Chinese government or the Chinese loan company have taken over the Zambia Broadcasting Corporation. And they have also taken over the Zambia Mining Corporation because they defaulted. They couldn't pay. So we don't want that to happen to Nigeria. We can take loans. We can borrow manageable loans. Some people say Nigerian loan, Nigerian GDP to our debt ratio is manageable. That shouldn't be the case. It should be your ability to pay back versus the loan you are procuring, not debt to debt ratio to GDP ratio. No.
Okay, let me pause here. I'm going to come to you while much more later, so that I will ask you how you guys feel about this thing when you are outside the shores of the continent. How you feel outside? I'll come to you now. Let me come to Mr. Omogbe. Now we are looking at a situation very unfortunate, you may want to say. By 2020, that's about 3 years ago now. Africa was hit by COVID-19, just the way other nations of the world. And I think that was where Zambia got it wrongly. By that year, Zambia became so unfortunate to the extent that they couldn't pay interest to money that they borrowed and all that. Now, if we had these unfortunate situations that may have bedeviled the African nations, rendering them unable to pay the money borrowed. So would we still want to say that perhaps there's been some reckless situation in parts of these countries that makes them not to pay their debts?
Well, Evans, let me appreciate you for the good work you're doing on educating our people. Debt is on its own. Impact of COVID-19 is a separate topic altogether. That is talking about...
But one leads to another.
That is talking about managing debt in the depressed situation.
Yeah.
Debt under normal circumstances are obtained with a view to meeting urgent economic and developmental needs of the people.
With all things being equal.
Yes, which we believe that they are equal to proving otherwise. And as you go for debts, you are also supposed to have at the back of your mind that at a set with the level of revenue expected by the administration in the various sectors that government sources funds will be able to pay back at an understandable rate
or time.
Yeah. Then when COVID set in, to me, it will be a crime for the borrower to be expecting payment. Because as at that point in time in the Western world,
it was a global pandemic.
So the global pandemic, yeah. And a number of people, through government policies, were protected from paying even rentages and other taxes that they are supposed to pay, knowing that all the industries were shut down. And those who were supposed to pay you back for your rentage or for a number of services rendered have no access to work or getting funds. And in some countries, they were even giving them palliatives. They were giving them food. So they were not expecting anybody to pay back loans. So you wouldn't expect African government to also pay back loans. So that is when you look at it from the angle of the COVID-19 effect, because no government expected COVID-19. The Western world that expected it, they even had it harder than the underdeveloped nations that didn't have the scientific foresight to know that such a pandemic was on the way.
Are we saying that COVID-19 situation is not enough case? It's not enough reason why some of these debts cannot be paid?
I am saying that there are reasons why these debts cannot be paid. And there are also reasons why the African heads of states can come together in a common front to approach the foreign world that they are borrowed from, that you are all part of this earth. Okay. And you all knew what happened. So this is what we can do. If they could cancel debts and rentages in their country because of the pandemic, then why can't they also give us that kind of palliative? If we are united and we present our limitations in an understandable manner.
Okay, let me come to Mr. John, Mr. Washington. I'll come to Professor. Now we're looking at a situation whereby just about some few days ago, the U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris was in Zambia, and she made a strong plea for debt reduction there, going by what happened in 2020 in Zambia, just like what we're saying. Now, this is not the first time that African nations are probably looking for a leeway, trying to plead for debt reduction and all that. But we've always had a situation whereby you plead for debt reduction, debt cancellation, and again, some of these countries, they go back, cap in hand, begging. So if we continue in this situation, do you see African nations, trying to be, in the first place, what do you think is the sincerity of purpose in all this you are pleading for, and at the same time you are going back to it?
The truth of the matter is that we in the African continent, we are not serious as a people, because when you know you don't have capacity to pay back the loans you are procuring, and you go back cap in hand, trying to secure more, it means you are not serious. You are not even willing to pay back. And the borrowers know that you cannot pay back. They are looking at your prized asset to take in case you don't pay back.
So they have ulterior motive.
They have ulterior motives. And we let them. If you look at Nigeria, in 2015, our debt profile was 1.58 billion. By 2022, it was 4.8 billion procured. And it's going up and up and up and up. How are we going to pay back? We don't have the means to pay back. The oil revenue is dwindling. If you look at Zambia, their main export is copper. And the copper market is not doing well. So how do we ever, if you say debt reduction, it won't save Zambia. Zambia needs debt cancellation. And even if you cancel their debt, I think they will go back. So what we can do, let's go back to Nigeria. What we need to do.
Okay. Now, let's come to Professor Victor Igbeneghu one more time. We ran through some of the countries, top 10 African countries owing China alone. We saw a series of them. We saw Angola, we saw Ethiopia, Kenya, and Republic of Congo, Sudan, Cameroon, Nigeria, and of course Ghana. And all these 10 countries owing just one country, just China alone. And most times, it is often said, it has been alleged now that when China comes to you, they will not give you this loan just like that. There must be a condition attached to it. Now, let's look at some of the projects that we're told that China is doing in Nigeria. Take, for example, the railway infrastructure that we have in Nigeria now. Some experts say that the Chinese government probably came to Nigeria with an ulterior motive. Why some also say that no, it is because they really want to develop Nigeria and also some other African country. Professor, you tell us, what is your own point of view on that?
They come, as I said earlier, it's like recolonization. It's just that China was not part of the first group that came, years ago. These people, these countries, they don't do anything for free. They want to take your prized asset, as Washington has said. There's no free lunch anywhere. So it is you that are supposed to know. And that's what boils down to the kind of leadership that we have. Who goes to call them? They come to sell things to you. You are in this office. If you are in your office, people come around to sell things to you. It's your decision to say you want to buy or you don't want to buy. And we have, as I said before, we have sufficient resources that we can harness to make us afloat as a nation. But we like conspicuous consumption. We want to show, want to buy big cars. And let me warn all of us. In a short while, all these are our big cars. We are going to be selling them to buy small cars because we cannot afford fuel anymore. I'm telling you, you'll be begging people to buy your big Jeep and everything. Otherwise, you will not eat. So that is the same thing that is happening to the country. They don't have investment. Everybody is on a spending spree because they have access to the till of the nation. They take money from there. They take money from there and use for their personal something. The money is not reinjected back to the system. Can you imagine that? We have 4 refineries in the country, and we are not producing refined petroleum products.
We are not refining.
Yes. And so we are going to, we will sell this crude oil and bring refined products. Where are we as a nation? Probably this is what also happens. If you go to their copper mines and all that, you see foreigners doing them. And Nigerians, as we are made to be aware, they have some of the best brains in this world that are working in these foreign countries. Can't we tap them? I told you earlier on that the biggest problem we have is in our ability to train our people properly, educationally. Because when you train people, you will harness them to other areas, good doctors and all that one. See, doctors are living in droves. They will just give them small education over there and they become something else.
Okay, Mr. Moy, we are looking at a situation whereby we can help ourselves back in Africa. Now, we understand that this borrowing comes with a whole lot of effects, you may want to say. Currency devaluation, our naira goes down by the day, and some other countries' currency is being devalued as a result of the effects of some of this borrowing. So let's start from Nigeria. Let's look inward. How do you think we can begin to rewrite this narrative when it comes to foreign debts and all that?
Well, in my, my opinion, Nigerians have the best of brains in the world. But leadership is a major issue. Companies go into agreements without the proper input of learned staff. And such agreement will normally end up in putting the company in a very tight corner. In life, no country lives in isolation. That's true. You live with people. But living together is a matter of understanding. When anybody, some time ago I did some work on leadership, and I made it clear that nobody needs a leader if you can achieve everything on your own. You only need a leader if through that leader you can achieve other things that you cannot be able to achieve on your own. Every country goes for foreign support, whether by financial borrowing or technical collaboration. But there must be an objective. The objective, first of all, must be for the betterment of your people, and then for the actualization of policies for the welfare of the people. If you now pick this loan, somebody comes to ITV and say, your cameras are looking obsolete. That what is used in CNN and BBC, they have gone beyond the stage. Why don't you go for something like that? And you say, we like it, but we are looking at the funds. He said, no, the funds isn't the problem. We can make it easier for you to have it. You say, we'll talk with our box that owns our station so we can get it. By the time your boss meets, they say, we can give you these things, but look at the conditions. You will just, by the time you agree with their conditions, they say, you don't have to sign this document for us. Those documents should also contain the fact that you give all these modern equipment, you use it only for us for about 6 months or a year. In the process, you should be able to put our staff through. So that in 6 months' time or a year time, when you're going back, our staff should be able to operate the equipment, and when there are issues, they should be able to fix it. So when Nigeria take loans from countries, they want to take over the economy. We did anti-SARB riot in Uniben, that was 1989 or so, under IBB. And part of the conditions for IMF loans then was that if we give you loan, we have to manage your economy. So if you surrender your economy to us, who are we not to help you use the economy? The same thing we have been suffering since that time.
So let's look inward.
But the point I'm saying now is that they should also be putting our people through so that they cannot continue to colonize us. If you are in agreement with them that they will go back to so and so time, your people will take over. What they are doing in this country now, the China people are in this country. The companies they are giving their equipment to, they bring the equipment, they operate in such a way that the staff there will never be able to use the equipment without them.
Now, Professor talked about education. That one way we can probably look at all these issues is to strengthen our education. You are in the education sector, the Dean of Applied Sciences, Edo Polytechnical, say. You also do the same business.
No problem.
Now, don't you think that when we strengthen our education, most of these things that we borrow for, we can look inward and address them? Don't you think so?
It is not as easy as you are looking at it.
So what is the problem?
Education is multi-dimensional. No matter how sound you are as a first-class graduate, if you come to work in ITV or any company, they will first of all teach you their rudiments. You must have in-service orientation before you can fit in. So we have good brains. These brains, if you observe when in secondary school, banks used to come to recruit the best students. Those students even when we University of Benin, those students are not accounting or banking and finance graduates. They are sound brains.
Because they are trainable.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are trainable. How about when the people you are borrowing for? We borrow technology. I'm not prepared to train you to understand technology. Then what do? That's why you see that when I was saying that these people come, they don't want our people to understand. And those who are borrowing, they don't also include the terms of agreement. That by so and so year, you must leave this thing for us. If you borrow technology and you understand over time, you'll be able to improve on it. Okay. So education is important. The agreement we reach with them is vital. Otherwise, they will not be under any obligation to train your people to understand the rudiments of this.
Mr. Washington, Nigerians in diaspora, what is their perception about this whole thing we're talking about now? African nations always going cap in hand to foreign nations, to the Western world, the Asian world and all that. What is their impression about it all?
You said, in one of your introductions, you said that 10 African countries, 10 most indebted African are indebted to China.
So just one country?
Just one country.
Yeah.
China has no good intention towards Africa. Theirs is to pillage, take what they can take.
But you cannot say so with all the technological advancement that they bring to you.
What they do, have many Chinese friends. What they do when they come to your place, when we were in secondary school, we have Indian teachers. They teach, when their contract is over, they go away. But Chinese don't do that.
Yeah, but let's look at the investment that they have here.
No, they
don't do all the jobs
investment
themselves.
A lot.
They train Nigerians to do.
No, not that much.
No.
They bring
people in the Benin, they don't know people.
They bring drivers. They bring traders. Wherever they go, they create this sub-Chinatown. When the contract is over, when the bridges are over, when the rail tracks are over, they don't go back. Most of them, they stay behind.
Now, I was in Azura. Azura plant is in Benin City here. I was opportune to look at the organogram. More than 80% of the people working there, they are Edolites, they are Nigerians.
Yes, but what I'm saying is that most of them that they bring are not the engineers you and I know. They bring artifacts, the artisans. Those other people that have nothing to do with anything. And they, most of the time, leave them behind. There's already a Chinatown in Lagos. There are Chinese towns everywhere they go. Indians don't do that. Japanese don't do that.
There are Chinese towns in Nigeria now.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Japanese don't do that. Indians don't do that. Koreans don't do that. In Asia, it's only Chinese that do that. Because they want to stay. If they stay and they enrich our technology, there's no problem there. Most of the people they leave behind sell shoes, sell plastics that has nothing to the economy. So it's not their problem, actually. It's our problem.
So, Professor Egudinyo, as we wrap up now, I think we're trying to say here that if this whole borrowing continues, our future is bleak as a continent.
Certainly. I just forgot to bring something I was reading this morning, where Edison, who created this incandescent light, they were telling him he was trying and trying. And so somebody started laughing at him and said, you have tried this thing 1,000 times, you couldn't get it. Yeah, he said, yes, he's trying, he tried. But along the line, he was gaining experience and wisdom. And eventually, he invented that light that we are using today. So sometimes we are too critical, overcritical of ourselves as a country. But that is part of the intelligence that we have, to be able to see that this thing is not right. But we have to make some allowance for the foibles, for mistakes. With the right leadership, we are going to have to rechannel our energy, that we can make it. We can train our people to be able to harness the resources. God has so blessed this country. You heard Mustafa saying that a feast of some minerals in Sabisa forest. That's what they are using to make so much of this electronics. It costs millions of dollars, just a feast of it. So why is the fight in around Sambisa? they will fight so that they can prevent people from going there. And these foreigners are the ones lifting everything away. The same thing with Zamfara.
The Nigerian authority has not told us that.
They won't tell you now.
But
Are you sure?
one thing I want to add is that, don't you wonder, we have black countries all over Africa and beyond Africa continent. None is doing well. Talk about Haiti.
Now, you cannot say none. No, Kenya,
relatively.
Relatively anyway.
Yes.
Relatively.
They are not doing well.
South Africa it's
anyway,
let's say relatively.
South Africa is about 70% black. But you cannot discount.
But Rwanda is on its feet today.
We don't know yet. When Yoweri Museveni came to power in 1986, resistance movement, the present president, Yoweri Museveni, was just like Paul Kagame of Rwanda.
Rwanda, yeah.
Uganda was growing 10% every year.
Okay.
But when he discovered that he didn't want to leave power, he wanted to be a live president, and people were nipping at his heels. So he started seeing enemies everywhere. Look at Paul Kagame. Paul Kagame was going to do 2 terms. The third term said, if the people want me, he got himself back there.
All right, so what we're saying in a nutshell,
the nutshell is that he's going to be seeing enemies everywhere, and those developments you are seeing today will stall. That is our African mentality. So leadership, like the professor said, leadership is the key. And we have to reorientate our culture. Culture that if you see people going up, you try to pull them down instead of going to meet those people up.
Okay, leadership is key.
Yeah, leadership. Yeah.
All right, Mr. Moy, but just 20 seconds, please, because of time. And I have to play with the PD with that. 20 seconds, quickly.
Let me say that we have the brains, and our people are prepared for development, but the government is not ready. That company you mentioned, Azura, I have been told by persons I know there that the real jobs there are done by Chinese people.
No, you cannot.
I said I have been told.
You don't. I will take that as an allegation.
Yes,
now.
yes.
All right. Now.
So because this same Simon I'm preaching here, that our people should be given. So given the way we have to carry on without these foreigners, our government must get involved and invest comprehensively in technical development, because no matter how intelligent you are, without the funds, you can't do anything.
All right, I really want to say a very big thank you to you guys, gentlemen, for finding time to come on the program today, African Discourse. Now, this continent, Africa, we owe ourselves a great deal. We owe ourselves the greatest deal to ensure that all this whole narrative of African nations borrowing here and there will come to an end. I told you that by the year 2021, the total debt that African nations are owing has reached $726 billion US. So that's a whooping sum amount of money. Very, very disturbing that these nations will always go cap in hand to Western world, the Chinese and the Indians, to beg for bailouts, monetary loans here and there. We just hope that all these things will be taken into cognizance so that we can actually start looking forward and see how we can free ourselves as a continent. Gentlemen, thank you so much for finding time to come on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, so that was the program today, African Discourse on Independent Television. My name is Evan Sunagoge. Goodbye and God bless you.